She said it like it was a joke. Well, Grandma's just a burden now, right? Before we begin, what country are you watching from? And just out of curiosity, what time is it for you right now? Wherever you are, we're so glad you're here. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. I was pouring her tea. The china cup rattled against the saucer as my hand caught the tremor, subtle but sharp. I looked down, blinked once, then twice, willing myself still. Olivia didn't even glance up from her phone. Her long, pink-tipped nails tapped across the screen as she smiled at something, a meme, maybe, or one of those video clips she's always showing to her friends where people fall or cry or embarrass themselves. Her friend Jasmine, not the tea, the girl, snorted behind her palm. "You're so bad," she said, nudging Olivia with a sock-covered foot curled on my couch. "My grandma would, kill me if I said that." Olivia shrugged. "Well, mine can't even hear half the time. So—" The laughter that followed was light, thoughtless, like birds chirping on a power line while someone fell from the roof. I stood there, the teapot still in my hand, steam curling up between my fingers. I set it down carefully on the tray and smoothed the corner of the doily, already stained from someone's spilled lemonade earlier that afternoon. No one thanked me. They never did. I turned quietly and walked back to my little suite, tucked away behind the kitchen, feeling my heart beat, not fast but firm, like it was reminding me I was still alive. My name is Margaret Ellis, Maggie to most, 75 this year, though I've worn every decade like a coat I had to grow into. I'm the kind of woman who makes herself small out of habit, not fear, like a dancer who's been told the stage is always shared. Henry used to say I had a quiet kind of strength. "You don't storm in, Maggie," he said once, sipping his black coffee on our porch in Greenville. "You just wait out the storm until everyone else realizes you were the shelter all along." It's been 11 years since I buried that man. He fought like hell. Cancer took his hair, and then his appetite, but not his humor. The night before he passed, he squeezed my hand and whispered, "You'll keep going, won't you? You're made of more than you let on." I thought I would. I thought I was. But grief doesn't punch you in the gut. It peels you, slow and methodical like old wallpaper, until you forget the color of your own walls. After Henry died, I stayed in the Greenville house for a while, kept the rose bushes trimmed, went to church on Sundays, played bridge on Tuesdays with Lorraine, and the girls, all of us widowed and stubbornly polite about it. But when Sandra called, sobbing over the phone, I came without hesitation. Her husband had walked out, left a note and a pile of credit card debt. Olivia was just 6, a child with big eyes and hair that never seemed to stay brushed. "I need help, Mom," Sandra had said. "Please, I can't do this alone." I didn't even let her finish. "I'll be there by morning." The Pinehurst house was a step up, at least on paper. 2 stories, beige siding, a patchy lawn that struggled in the summer but came alive in spring. Sandra had it built with a mother-in-law suite on the back, a small bedroom, private bathroom, and kitchenette that I barely used. What no one remembered was that this land, this house, it came from Henry and me when his mother passed in 1993. She left us enough to buy a second property. We bought this one. I wanted to keep it in the family, so we sold it to Sandra and her husband a few years later. But the paperwork, well, that was never properly filed. They took over payments, handled the renovations, but the deed, that never moved. Still mine, though I'd all but forgotten it myself. The past 16 years have been filled with the kind of work no one claps for. I rose at 6 to pack Olivia's lunches, washed her soccer uniforms, kissed her scrapes. When Sandra went back to school for dental hygiene, I ran the house, took in sewing jobs to add to the grocery money, made dinners, paid the water bill. Once or twice, when things were tight, Olivia used to love sitting at the kitchen table with me, feet swinging above the floor. I taught her to knit. We made sock puppets. I showed her how to press flowers in wax paper and tuck them inside her school books, like secrets only she could keep. But girls grow up, and sometimes they grow mean. Lately, my presence had begun to feel inconvenient. I noticed it in the way Sandra paused before inviting me to events, in the whispered tones behind closed doors, in how Olivia would flinch if I asked too many questions in front of her friends. I'd become wallpaper, faded, reliable, background, until that Friday afternoon. It was Olivia's birthday weekend. 17. She had 3 friends over, the loud kind, with crop tops and sneakers that never saw dirt. I made a lemon bundt cake, the kind she used to beg for in middle school. I set it on the counter, a yellow bow on top. No one said a word about it, not even when the smell of it filled the house like warm sunlight. I folded laundry while they played music loud enough to shake the windows. Sandra was working late. Again, it was just me and the girls. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I was walking down the hall, balancing a stack of folded towels for the upstairs linen closet, when I heard Olivia's voice. No, seriously, the second she moves into a home, I'm converting that suite into a studio space. Laughter. Another girl chimed in. For real, it's weird you still live with your grandma. I know, Olivia said. It's like, isn't that what homes are for? The towels slipped from my hands. I stood there, halfway in shadow, heart pressing up against my ribs. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my old rocker, wrapped in the quilt Sandra and I stitched when she was pregnant. I ran my hands over the seams, tracing the little hearts and stars we'd sewn together. My body ached, but it wasn't pain that kept me awake. It was clarity. I thought about every sandwich I'd packed, every holiday meal I'd made from scratch while Sandra scrolled through her phone, every time I'd been called a blessing in public, but ignored in private. And then, in the morning, I walked to the mailbox like I always did, cane in one hand, coffee thermos in the other. The sun was sharp that day, the kind that makes you squint even with your glasses on. Inside the box was a thick white envelope, County Tax Office. I opened it right there by the curb, my fingers stiff with arthritis, but still able. Page 2, there it was. Owner of record, Margaret Ellis. Not Sandra, not her ex, not even jointly, just me. I stood in the driveway and laughed, not loud, just a quiet, rasping thing that startled a bird from the eaves. That night, I didn't make dinner. I let the dishes stay in the sink. I didn't fold Olivia's hoodie from the laundry pile. Instead, I sat with a pad of paper and started writing a list. What did I want? Where could I go? What kind of life could I still have? Not for them, but for me. The burden, they called me, well, let's see how they like carrying the weight of their own damn roof. I didn't act right away. Not out of fear, out of calculation. I've lived long enough to know that if you want something to really land, to hit in a way they'll remember, you don't shout. You wait. You gather. You let them keep showing you who they are. And when they do, you respond with truth. Not vengeance. Just truth wrapped in consequence. I made coffee the next morning like always, folded Sandra's scrubs, and placed them on her bed. I even offered to drive Olivia to school. She said no, of course. It's fine, Grandma. I'm not 5. I smiled. Didn't say you were, sweetheart. She didn't look up from her phone. Again, that week, I started walking every afternoon. It was a slow shuffle at first. My knees weren't what they used to be, and the sidewalk in our neighborhood was cracked and lazy with weeds. But I made it to the corner store by Thursday, where I bought a pack of gum I didn't want just so I could ask the clerk, a kind-faced man named Raj, for directions to the public library. It wasn't far. The next day, I put on Henry's old fishing hat, grabbed my canvas tote, and made the walk. The library was small, but spotless, and mercifully cool. I asked for help at the front desk. A young woman named Julia, pink hair and all. "Of course I can help," she said when I told her what I was looking for. "Property law isn't sexy, but it is powerful." She printed things, highlighted, explained terms. I took notes. I came back the next day, and the next. Sandra didn't notice. Olivia didn't either, but I did. I felt something uncoil in my chest for the first time in years. By the end of the second week, I had a plan and an appointment. That's where Mrs. Trudy Gilmore came in. She lived across the street in the pale yellow house with the shutters always one gust away from falling off. Her late husband, Harold, had been in the same VFW hall as Henry. We'd exchanged pleasantries over the years. "Need help with your garbage cans? You still make that zucchini bread?" But we'd never truly spoken until I knocked on her door, holding a file folder, hands trembling not from nerves, but excitement. She answered in a purple housecoat and bare feet. "Maggie," she blinked, "is everything all right?" "Actually," I said, "it's finally about to be." Trudy, as it turned out, had been a paralegal in her younger years and still kept contacts in the right places. She helped me reach out to a notary, dig up all the original deed documents, and quietly update the legal title so that it reflected what it always should have, my full and sole ownership. It wasn't malicious, just overdue. I also asked Trudy another favor, this one personal. "I'm looking for independent senior living options," I said, "somewhere with community. And gardens, maybe. I've got a bit tucked away. And once this house sells." She beamed. "I know just the place. And my niece's friend runs the admin desk. She'll get you a tour." The tour was the following Tuesday. I took a lift, wore my best cardigan, dusted off the brooch Henry gave me for our 25th. The place, Greenfield Commons, looked nothing like a retirement home. It was bright, airy, full of soft music, and the smell of fresh bread. People my age played cards in the lounge. One woman was leading a watercolor class. Another had a dog at her feet. The staff addressed everyone by name. I didn't know I'd been lonely until I saw what it meant not to be. The woman giving me the tour, Renee, smiled and said, "You'd have your own unit, full kitchen, little patio, and access to the garden club if you're into that." I nodded slowly. It was more than I'd hoped. By the end of the hour, I'd signed the first deposit check. Nothing final, just a placeholder, a whisper to the universe. I am coming. At home, things got worse. One evening, I found Olivia scrolling Zillow on her laptop, looking for apartments. I asked lightly. She snorted. "Nah, just checking the estimate on this house. If we added a back deck and redid the suite, we could probably list for $850. Easy." I paused in the doorway. She looked up, and for a moment, her eyes flickered, like she realized what she'd said. But then it passed. "Oh, right," she added, "faux sweet. No offense, Grandma. Just, eventually." I see, I said. A few nights later, Sandra brought it up again. We were doing the dishes. She dried. I washed. I don't want to hurt your feelings, Mom, she began, but I've been thinking it might be time to consider other arrangements for you. I didn't say anything. Let her fill the silence. Like a senior community, she rushed on. You'd be with people your age. You'd have freedom. And Olivia needs space now. College applications, she needs quiet. I looked down at the soapy water, bubbles catching the light. I see, I said again. She smiled like she dodged a bullet. Good. I knew you'd understand. I did, just not in the way she thought. 2 days later, I contacted a realtor. Private sale. Fast-track listing. No signs, no flyers. Just the truth, signed and sealed. Are you sure about this? The agent asked. I've never been more sure. I said, I timed everything perfectly. The Greenfield unit would be ready by the end of the month. I scheduled the moving truck for the last Friday. Quiet, professional, discreet. The listing went live on a Thursday morning. By Saturday, I had 3 offers, one above asking. I accepted, signed the final papers that Sunday in Trudy's kitchen with her niece, the notary, watching over it all. Monday came. Sandra asked if I could babysit her co-worker's toddler in the afternoon. I politely declined. Olivia needed a ride. I let her wait. By Tuesday, they were tense. I could feel it. They didn't know what was coming. But I did. I was almost peaceful. I made one final pot of jasmine tea on Wednesday afternoon and sipped it slowly in the suite I once believed I'd die in. It no longer felt like a cage. It felt like a cocoon, cracked open. Friday morning began like any other. I woke before the sun, made my coffee, black, no sugar, and stood by the kitchen window, watching the sky soften from indigo to gold. Pinehurst was quiet at that hour, the kind of suburban hush that almost makes you forget how loud life can get once everyone wakes up needing something. Not me, though. I didn't need anything from them anymore. By 9 a.m., the movers had arrived, 2 polite young men in navy polos. Efficient, friendly. I offered them muffins I'd baked the night before. They thanked me like I was their grandmother, not just a client. Everything's boxed and labeled. I told them, bedroom, living area, books. I'll ride with you to the new place. It's all arranged. They nodded. We'll be done in under 2 hours. I smiled. Perfect. Sandra and Olivia were at the kitchen table when I returned inside, both still in pajamas, scrolling on their respective screens. They hadn't noticed the truck parked quietly on the side street. Not yet. Sandra looked up first. Oh, you're dressed early. I nodded. Big day. Olivia muttered something without looking up. I stepped closer and gently laid the envelope on the table between them. Thick, white, neatly sealed. My name in cursive on the front. What's this? Sandra asked. I poured myself one last cup of tea before answering. Jasmine, fragrant and floral, just the way Olivia used to like it, when she still had pigtails and patience. It's an update, I said, about the house. They both froze. Olivia frowned. Wait, what? Sandra opened the envelope, eyes scanning faster and faster. Her lips parted, and her face went pale. This says you sold the house. I sipped my tea. That's correct. She blinked. No, that's not possible. It's in my name. It never was, I said quietly. Henry and I bought this house in 1993. The title transfer we agreed on never filed. Your name's not on it, Sandra. Never was. Olivia looked between us. You're kidding. I turned to her. No, sweetheart, I'm not. Sandra's voice turned sharp, desperate. You didn't even ask. I wasn't asked when you decided to call me a burden. I replied calmly. When you talked about turning my suite into a studio, when Olivia's friends mocked me in my own kitchen. That was a joke, Olivia snapped. I raised an eyebrow. If it was, it told me everything I needed to know. Sandra stood, the chair scraping behind her. Where are we supposed to go? I set my tea down gently. The buyer is giving you 60 days to vacate. I was generous with the terms. You'll have time. Her mouth opened, then closed. I raised you, Sandra. I said, quieter now. I came when you called. I held this family together with dinners and diapers and dignity. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being a person to you. I became background. Neither of them spoke. I continued, voice steady. I'm moving into a beautiful place with gardens and watercolor classes. I'll be around people who see me, not just use me. Olivia looked stricken. Grandma? Don't, I said gently. Don't say you didn't mean it. You did. Maybe not maliciously, but you meant it. And now you've seen what I can do when I mean something too. I gathered my tote bag, the one with the green flower patch Olivia had sewn onto it when she was 8. I paused in the doorway of my suite. Now empty, the air still carrying the faint scent of lemon polish and jasmine tea. Sandra stood in the hall as I left. So that's it? You're just gone. I turned, met her eyes. No, I'm just finally here. The ride to Greenfield Commons was quiet, peaceful. The movers unloaded with care. Renee greeted me at the front with a hug and a folder full of welcome papers. My new unit had pale yellow curtains and a small balcony overlooking a garden blooming with lavender and sunflowers. By late afternoon, my books were on their shelves. My framed wedding photos sat on the dresser beside a fresh bouquet. I made myself a cup of tea, jasmine, of course, and stepped out onto the balcony. Below, a woman named Dorothy waved from the garden path. I'm starting a memoir club. She called up. You in? I smiled. Absolutely. That evening, as the sun painted the sky in soft oranges and purples, I sat in my favorite chair and finally let myself exhale, not in defeat, in relief. I had nothing left to prove, no one left to please. And yet, for the first time in years, I felt deeply, fiercely proud of myself. I didn't slam any doors. I didn't scream. I didn't curse or beg. I just quietly walked away and let the house close behind me like a book I'd finished reading long ago. 1 month later, I received a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. It was Olivia. Dear Grandma, I've been thinking about what I said, what I did, and how you left. I was wrong. I see it now. I hope you're happy. I hope you forgive me. Love, Olivia. I didn't cry, but I did sit with the letter for a long while, letting its words settle into the corners of my heart. Forgiveness is a door too. Not always easy to walk through, but worth unlocking. Maybe someday I'd open it. But for now, I had watercolor class at 10 and a lavender scone cooling on my windowsill. And I was finally, quietly, completely living my own life,